Thank you for joining us. I thought I'd begin with an overview of daily operations and how things are going at the high school. If we go to the next slide, I'll give an update, Mr. Keogh. All things we do on a daily basis are really tied to the strategic plan. As you know, there are 4 pillars: contemporary teaching and learning, diverse learners, professional learning, and also social emotional learning. So let me just take you through a quick overview, if you don't mind. I'll obviously be questions at the end, I'm sure. So we'll be glad to answer them for you, whether it's related to what I present or not. Basically, just to let you know, everything now before when you went to school was much more formal and frontal. Everything is now really leading toward inquiry-based learning, maximizing the objectives of our strategic plan through inquiry-based learning. Just so you know, each teacher gets observed at least twice a year. So untenured teachers 3 times. I try and get into classrooms 3 or 4 times a day and do drop-ins. They're more informal. I don't spend a lot of time, but you really do get a pulse of what's going on in the room and what you're seeing and how the students are doing and how the teachers are doing. So also we do a lot of collegial sharing at the middle school, high school. There are team meetings. As you know, at the middle school, high school, it's more informal, but they all share preps. Lunchtime together, they're very collegial. We had a professional development day on Tuesday with a lot of exchange of information and learning. Also in interdepartmental, this year, we started on Tuesday, we'll continue. Obviously, there's a link. What we're trying to do, and technology has been a big aid on this, is break down the silos of basically, this is English, this is social studies, never the two will meet. I mean, the teachers do work together. We're working on libraries, working on reports and research papers. So that's all in the work on an ongoing basis. And I'm going, last year with the pandemic, things are a lot different. So we're trying to get back on track to where we were, obviously, and proceed forward. And finally, we have a lot of new staff. It's very important. Tuckahoe is a very small district, and a lot of our teachers, most of our teachers, as different from Eastchester or Bronxville or any other larger school, teach multiple preps. So, on the extreme end, I have someone like Mr. Pappas who teaches 6 preps on a weekly basis. That is unheard of and maybe the record in New York State. So all our teachers teach multiple preps, which is because we're small. So, we don't have as many selections or sections as other schools. So, we have one section of AP psychology. So Mr. Pappas teaches 6 preps during a week. That's like preparing for 6 presentations on a daily basis. And most do teach 3 or 4 at the high school. So that's a little bit different. It's part of the program when teachers come here, but new teachers have to work to adjust to that. So basically with the inquiry-based learning, we work toward, maximizing what's in the strategic plan and the pillars. Moving along, we continue to provide academic opportunities through evaluation of course offerings. That's ongoing. We've introduced recently new courses. Project-based learning and research-based learning has obviously become more critical. I will share with you, years ago when I walked into a classroom on a drop-in, if kids were working independently or in groups, the teacher would try and lecture because it looked good. Now it's the opposite. When I walk in, they say, you caught me lecturing, and it's only for 15 minutes. But the kids are working independently and doing research work. So, the things have changed dramatically in education. Teachers still do frontal work because they have to explain the knowledge. If students are going to do research, they have to have preliminary knowledge to do it. Same with project-based learning, you have to have a basic knowledge. So we've introduced new courses based upon what's going on in society. We're still a Regents-based high school though, regardless. So we have architecture, we have an entrepreneurial course we've just introduced. I've been down there several times, it's going well. Taking students through the product cycle, product knowledge, product development, and all the aspects of that to work on a project. So basically they'll come out with a product that is really, they can implement into market, hopefully. AP Physics we've introduced. Obviously, we want to improve our AP enrollment. And we have applications of physics and engineering introduced, which is basically more project-based than any Regents or project or AP course that we have. So we're looking at this all the time. We evaluate new courses. It's an ongoing process. just to let you know, we also have initiatives going on within these new courses and within the current courses. So the high school, like the middle school, as you know, reading is on the decline nationwide from adults to students. So about 7 years ago, we introduced a student choice reading program, where obviously to get students motivated to read, because reading is still very critical, obviously. You know, there are independent libraries in the English classes, and it's now become more interdepartmental with social studies and science, getting students to read, really literature, really books instead of on their phone or on the internet. We also project-based learning, as I've mentioned before, is becoming, you know, more increased in the high school. We've had it in some courses for a couple of years, but obviously that's where the world of work is going, and we're cognizant of that. And obviously we have an online learning program here. We've had it for 15 years. I introduced it. We were the first high school in Westchester really to introduce online learning. And what it does do is basically the competitive disadvantage we have as a small school, it levels the playing field, and we use it, you know, judiciously as much as little as possible. But if a student wants to take an AP course and can't fit government in their schedule, offer them online government. So it's basically, and also there are some courses. I'll give you an example in math. The highest level we go is AP Calculus AB. There's a higher level calculus course called AP Calculus BC. We've had students take the BC course online. Usually it's a limited number of students, but we want to offer them the maximum at the highest level if that's what they want to do. So, and also we work on articulation. Obviously, I'm in charge of the middle school, so we ramped up the 5th to 6th grade articulation. There were meetings with the English department. On Tuesday, we're setting up a math meeting with 5th to 6th grade. Likewise, obviously, everybody's in the same building here, so it's easier. You know, I'm setting up 8th to 9th grade articulation. We're starting with English for the next professional development day, and we'll work from there. So that's an ongoing goal. Moving along, number 3, you know, when we talk about assuring technology, and we want to make sure it addresses the success of our students. You know, just because we're doing a lot of technology, we want to make sure it fits for everybody. You know, as I said, I'm in the classrooms. I see a lot of wonderful things, but you know, one thing does not fit all. So we assess that. Based upon that, with the inquiry-based learning, we've created the Tiger program, which is obviously with the pandemic, students struggled mightily. So we have really almost like an alternative ed program with the Tiger program for students who really haven't been able to adapt to the formal system here. It's worked very well. The district has been very supportive of that. You know, how we adapt technology is critical, and that's ongoing. You know, Dr. Mosier at the high school was a technical liaison. That's important. And significantly at the high school, school climate and school culture is very important. The research tells you that basically when you have a school of more than 400, you start to go down a slope because everything's based upon relationships. Obviously, the high school is less than 400. So I run it like a small school, and all the advantages of a small school. And the research tells you small schools are more effective in developing relationships. You know, I think it's pretty evident that how our staff feels about our students. We try and run a caring culture here. You know, we greet the students with respect and dignity every morning. It's not us versus them. And you're able to do that in a small school. I'm going to be candid with you. If there was 2,000 students in the high school, it would be much harder to do. So the advantages, the research tells you the small schools have big advantages as far as caring culture and understanding where students are. And we try and maximize that advantage. Also, Mr. DeBellis is on the line here. We have a safety committee, building safety committee. He spearheads that for both the building and the district. He's very proactive, working with agencies. He did a presentation yesterday. Teachers had extended day on basically evacuation, where to go, what to do, what the protocols are. And he's also with the capital project, working with the district to get safety enhancements in the building. Moving along to number 4. Next slide, Mr. Keogh. Obviously, we talk about student life. That's a very, you know, significant part based upon what I just said. we continue to monitor progress on that. With the pandemic, things have changed, and we're trying to make sure everybody feels comfortable from an SEL perspective. And just like we run the school on a daily basis, treating students with respect and making sure they feel comfortable here. Have a nice day. Thanks for coming. We care about you. And, I'll give you an example, just so you know, in the halls, the mantra we have is if students are walking the hall, it's not where you're going or why aren't you in class. And no, that's from the 1970s. Basically, the mantra here is how can I help you? And that really, sends the caring message. And frankly, if the students where they're not supposed to be, they're going to at least say, well, they're looking for help, and we'll help them get back to where they belong. So, it's all very, significant in the language we use and the culture we really support. Obviously, getting connected, we have sports teams. I'll take you through that. Getting involved with clubs. We had a club fair. Mr. Tobin is very instrumental and very active in getting everybody involved. So we had a club fair. We try and keep everybody involved. Obviously, volunteer and community service activities are part of that. We had a breast cancer walk, awareness concert. If you had a chance to see the chorus concert on breast cancer awareness, Ms. Reedy put it together with the Pink Club Dance last week. It was wonderful. National Honor Society has set up tutoring with guidance for students who really are struggling already. First marking period coming to an end. They're planning a leukemia walk at the end of the year, and the National Honor Society has already started a food drive. So we're really active in trying to get students involved in community service. Obviously, the National Honor Society does have a requirement for community service. Going back to where we were before the pandemic, standardized tests. We're a Regents high school, and I will submit that some high schools sort of minimize the Regents, especially private schools. And the Regents, for the most part, are rigorous. I mean, the entry out Regents are not, but once you get past algebra at the math level, they become very rigorous for students. And basically, we're a Regents high school, so we have Regents. The teachers got the Regents schedule yesterday in June, and there's with project-based learning, which is where people want to go for the world of work. The Regents don't accommodate that. That's always a challenge. So the teachers are really working on both ends, working on project-based learning and the elective courses. The Regents courses give them less flexibility. So AP courses, the curriculum's already laid out. And obviously, we're working toward that. We have SAT and ACT prep, which I'll talk more about. So getting back to standardized tests is not going away in New York State, it seems. There was some talk about that. They canceled it last year, but looks like June, it's all go. So we'll be doing a lot of testing. Mr. DeBellis handles the testing here. Thank you. For the APs in May and for the Regents in June. So we look at, post-pandemic performance. Society is changing. Where we were 2 years ago, we try and keep up with the norms of what's going on in society, whether it's technology. Dr. Mosier and Mr. Moore at the middle school, are always bringing innovative things to work with the teachers. But that always obviously, just all the issues with Facebook that are going on, both from a corporate perspective and a customer service perspective, these are things we try and keep up with and really make sure the school is not impacted negatively, but also we try to turn things into a positive. Okay, so moving along, that's just an overview of daily operations. I just thought I'd just touch base on dynamics of the changes in inquiry-based learning. Like I said, the majority of learning, whether it's in a block schedule or a non-block, is blended. It's technology driven. It's obviously very visual. It's much different from when any of us went to school. The iPhone came into play about 17 years ago, and all the adults were shocked and dismayed of how the students were attached to their phones. And now I find myself, if I leave my house without my phone and I'm a block away, I'm going back to get it. So that's how the world has changed. And that's how technology has changed and learning has changed in the high school, especially. So we also, as I mentioned, Dr. Mosier does professional development. She's available online to consult with teachers. And with technology, everybody's in a different place. There's no doubt about it. Some people are very, very astute at it. Some people are curious to learn more, the latest thing that comes out, they introduce it and they share it with their colleagues and the staff. Other people need more assistance. So that's part of it. We understand that everybody's in a different level. We work toward that. And just so you know, because with the benefit of technology is differentiation is now much more natural because teachers are able to adjust and bring in different virtual aspects. So 15, 20 years ago, differentiation was a much bigger challenge. It still is a challenge, but it's definitely technology has really smoothed that along. So student collaboration, obviously, we can bring career aspects into learning. We're pushing that. Assessment is now real time. Obviously, teachers can look right online when students are editing papers or working on papers. So that's changed, and that's a big advantage. And like I mentioned, career opportunities. Also, there's been a gain in instructional time with technology. The idea of collecting papers, walking it around the room, that still goes on, but it's much more minimal so we picked up instructional time. Basically, teachers can just look right online and do the assessment there, and most likely in real time. Moving along, I mentioned how some of the aspects we brought in. I wanted to talk about writing. Obviously, I was an English teacher for 5 years, and I will tell you one of the most difficult aspects to teach was writing. We introduced about 7 years ago the writing revolution. We're bringing it back. We lost a little momentum with the pandemic last year, but as a former English teacher, the teacher prep programs. When I ask English teachers, what strategies or what program did you learn in your teacher prep coming out of college or wherever the graduate school? And it's usually the response is not what you want to hear. When this came out, I jumped on it. We met Julie Hockman, who's the founder of it, coming out of Wynwood. And it's not just for kids who are struggling. It's for anybody who really wants to become a better writer. If you're Hemingway or you're at a very high level, you really don't need it. But most of us, most students do really benefit from it. So the teachers brought it in. It's one of the few PDs that the teachers really went after. They paid for it out of our reward grant money we got from the state. The high school was recognized for 3 years in a row, and we got grant money from that. And let me just tell you, it's not a program, but it's a strategy. And it's a very clever strategy that gets kids to really, it forces them to really utilize the mechanics of writing and the really protocols of writing, good writing, to get them disciplined. And it does it within a content area, which is really, really significant. It's not just teaching commas on an isolated area. So we're going to do commas today, and we're going to do commas for 20 minutes. It's basically teaching it within the content areas. So social studies teacher can use it, a science teacher can use it. And we're, obviously with the pandemic, as I mentioned, we did lose a little momentum, but we're bringing it back this year. And like I said, the teachers and the feedback from the parents before the pandemic was very, very positive. So that's what's going on with the writing revolution. Moving along, I wanted to talk about visual literacy. In the 21st century, this is something we've been in the forefront on. The high school and the middle school, we had a partnership with Jacob Burns Educational Center in Pleasantville. And due to, everybody knows what's going on, it's a visual world we live in. As I mentioned before, reading has declined. Everybody gets their newspapers online. I think the reading habits have changed because of that. And everything else is really dramatically changed. And obviously pictures and visual medium has really outflanked the written text. That being said, the written text is obviously very critical. So we've had professional development here in visual literacy. Many of our teachers have gone to Jacob Burns over the summer, and they've actually integrated it back here. Many of our teachers have picked it up on their own because obviously, if you have a blended lesson, it's critical that the visual students, especially in the block for 90 minutes or even 45 minutes, you've got to have some visual medium. Otherwise, you'll lose the students. So on top of that, it's a requirement for 21st century life, And what we do is we apply, the skills that you and I learned in textual literacy as far as analysis, whether it's character development, setting, what's going on in the story? What is the tone? What was the author inferring? What is the author directly saying? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? That now has to be done on a visual level. Basically, here's a film, here's a clip you saw regarding whatever it is. It could be newsworthy, it could be literature, it could be something that is, a hobby. But, what is it saying here, and what approaches is the director using, whether it could be, coloring, lighting, camera angle to get you emotively involved. So that's a skill that is obviously going forward that will be lifelong. What we do, though, is because the text is so important, is we tie it back to the text. So, students will be reading the text, whether it's a student choice or a classic piece of literature that the whole class is reading, they will tie it back. So, there's an analysis of the visual and analysis of the textual. And sometimes basically, there is a compare and contrast. And when I observed the class on Romeo and Juliet, they're reading Shakespeare's play, and basically they had the modern, I think it's a 1995 version. And basically they looked at the film. They don't look at the whole. It's not 2 hours of movies. Those days are long gone. It's basically, let's look at scene 3 in the film. Let's look at scene 3 in Shakespeare's text. And basically you compare what you see in the film, how the director is really dealing with Shakespeare's play from a film perspective. And then what do you see in the written text that Shakespeare actually wrote? And then thirdly, suppose you were acting this out in the theater, what would be the differences? So it's really, some higher level thinking there to get you to see how an author may be challenging you, getting you to think, and even manipulating you. So that's part of what's going on there. So we apply technology to that. And the point of it is really to develop citizenship, empathy, compassion, and a competitive understanding. We're going to be in the global world. We are in the global world. Our students are going to go out to careers and works. We want them to be basically critical thinkers after they leave the high school and get prepared for college. Moving along, getting prepared for college is obviously a big thing. So I just want to let everybody know in the senior year, we have an internship program. Mr. Calaswano does a great job. I'll take you through this briefly for many of you who have not had seniors. You see the participation rate, and it happens at the end of senior year. And I know I'm a career switcher. I worked for Unilever for over 19 years in supply chain management internationally. I was an English teacher. I was a board member at Pleasantville. So I've done a lot of different things, and my interests change, and your passions grow as you grow older. So it's important that students really at least get a touch of what real life is before they get to college. I'll give you an example. For years, people would tell me, the students would tell me they want to go into business, and I would bring in my office and I talk about marketing, and they wouldn't know what marketing was. And I said, well, if you're going to go into business, you really want to have some preview of what's going on before you spend, $120,000 over 4 years. It's probably more than that now, obviously. So, we try and get the students out there to get a taste of what they may like and what they may be interested in. A lot of students go into college undecided, but, basically it's the focus then before graduation on what they can do, when they get to college. And sometimes they get in an internship program and they don't like it. And that's okay too. I had one student who wanted to be a phys ed teacher, and he came back, to meet with his advisor. And I said, how's it going? He said, oh, yeah, it's really hard. I didn't know, so, that's good. At least they know what they're getting into, and they're going to spend money in college on a major. They'll have some idea of what the preview is. Just more explanation on the internship program moving along. So the process is there's fall meetings. I mean, this is, it's a well-executed program. There's an application and parent consent form. The teachers, obviously serve as advisors and mentors. We appreciate their support. Students have to prepare a resume. There's a student meeting with the program coordinator. And then obviously we select sponsors. And, the community has been great. I'll show you the list from last year. Even with COVID, it was done virtually. Students are still required for final exams and AP exams and completing their courses. So, there's a ritual to that. Moving along, there's basically, they have to, Mr. Keo, the next slide for the parents. Requirements, just so you know, 20 hours per week for the internship site. They have to meet with their faculty mentor. They maintain an accurate timesheet. They have to do a journal documenting their experiences and accomplishments. And they do an all presentation in June where the faculty is invited to. We're doing regions and exams. It's a very busy time of year, but teachers do drop in, especially the mentors have to be there. And I'll try and make as many as I can. Mr. Bellis comes in, Mr. Tobin. So, and it, you know, it's the real world. So, you know, it's been a very successful program. The numbers I showed you, some like last year was 47 kids. It's a little low, but we had a small graduating class. I would say they alternate. About 80 to 95% of the students participate. You really have to be ready to graduate to go out on an internship. So if you're not, you know, New York State has some definite graduation requirements. So if you don't meet them, you can't go out. So that's really the limiting factor. Otherwise, they're all ready to go out for sure, especially at senior year. Moving along. So here's some of the sites. You can see Mr. Calaswano does a great job. You know, the list of changes depending on the situation and the economy and their ability to do things, but and it varies. So we're looking forward to another program this year. We have a larger senior class. So you know, there'll be more opportunities for students. And obviously students get involved too. They talk to Mr. Calaswano on what their interests are, and he tries to match it up as best he can. So just some activities, most of you are aware of this. You know, I mentioned monitoring recently initiated courses, professional outreach. You know, we're starting career planning. The guidance department will be going into classrooms in the spring, in the 10th grade, to talk about careers. We have ongoing college visits. In the past, we had live college fairs. Due to COVID, we were not able to do that. But I would say, I read the list every day. And, you know, there are, I would say on the average, there's at least 2 college virtual visits. There's only one today, Sacred Heart University is here this afternoon. But overall, you know, sometimes there's 4 colleges, other days there's 1. But ongoing college visits virtually, I'll go into guidance and the students are sitting there, talking to the admissions person on the college. So we also, the guidance department is very active. They have parental presentations. If you're a senior parent, you already experienced that in September. They hit the ground running. We try and get it the second week in September because everybody is working on college applications. You know, they also, the college essay, the English teachers work on toward the end of the year. And when they come back, Ms. Iverson is very active and gives class time to work with students on the college essay, you know, and prepare them. They're supposed to come in with a draft. Many do, some don't, but she prepares them and works with them both in conferences and gives them class time. So we had 11th and 12th grade, 10th and 11th grade meeting in October. And next week we have 8th and 9th grade parent meetings. As you know, we may not be aware, the guidance counselors met with the 12th grade parents and students individually. That is in follow-up to the 11th grade meeting they had last March, February. So the juniors, they meet as juniors in March and February, second semester of junior year, one-on-one parent, student, and guidance counselor. And in September, October, they come back as 12th graders. So get as part of the college application process. In a couple of weeks, they'll be meeting with the 9th grade parents and students to see how it's going. We wait till the report cards are out, so we have a better idea on how we're helping serve our students as a high school, and also how they have to, you know, how they're adjusting to the high school life. As you know, or may be aware, we have a grant from the Carapella family and we decided that, you know, they wanted to give us for scholarships. And I talked to the estate lawyer about 5 years ago, and I said, that's all great, but we'd like, if you could give money for our students to really do the practice SAT and ACTs, that would be so much more beneficial. You know, it would help them prepare for college and would help them get other scholarships. So they graciously agreed to it. I think we're in our 4th year with the scholarship. We have Jumpstart working with our students for practice on Tuesday. We had most of the junior class, a high majority of the junior class come in. This is for 11th graders and take a practice ACT. They will be taking a practice SAT. the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And basically in December, they will have a conference with Jumpstart and basically go over what their results were and which tests they think they'll be most beneficial in taking. So, we work on that. And of course, so Mr. DeBellis hosted the PSATs in October, which is really a National Merit Scholarship. And believe it or not, the SAT, ACT practice exam is more relevant. That's why we give it on top of the PSATs regarding projecting on a success in the PSATs. Moving along. Student activities, we've had a very busy fall. Obviously we had Spirit Week and homecoming. Thank God the weather held up. Everything, National Honor Society, as I mentioned, is starting their tutoring and their volunteer work. We've had several GO events, which I highlighted. I hope you had a chance to catch the haunted house on Monday night. It was excellent outdoors. I mean, they did just as well outdoors as they've done in the past indoors. And we're looking at possibly doing it more outdoors in the future. Tuckahoe is very bent on tradition. So to get people to change is always, takes significant work sometimes, but overall, the chance to innovate for the students is outdoors is much more possible given the fire codes indoors. And I will submit, our students are so, I'm knocking wood here because, we all were teenagers once and they are so well behaved and respected. I mean, the idea that you're going to have 70, 17-year-olds dress up and try to scare, middle school and elementary school kids appropriately. I mean, and then we all know the fine line's changing. I think 5 years ago, we had to ban clowns. I never thought I would have to say that, but now clowns are scary. It used to be funny, but so, this is life changing. So, but they have to do it appropriately and scare people, but you can't, you have to watch the fine line. So we had the Ragamuffin Parade, the Habitat for Humanity is in full cycle. We've introduced new clubs, web design, robotics. We have some traditional clubs. The Science Olympiad is moving forward and looking forward to another great spring musical. Activity sports. I think everybody's aware we have a high sports program for a small school, both in clubs and activities. I thank the Board of Education and the superintendent for all their, this is a financial investment in our students. And I know it doesn't take much coercing. I mean, they're all very student oriented and we'd appreciate that. But, this is basically, it's amazing the amount of activities we offer students for such a small school. Lacrosse and track are relatively new. So they keep on looking. Mr. Tobin is really active and is a great listener and finding out what students are interested in and how we can implement it going forward. Moving along, we had, as I mentioned, we had the activity fair. We have students, obviously, because we're a small school, the students get stretched. I mean, we can't clone them. They can only be in one place at one time, but basically, they're involved in clubs, they're involved in sports. So we do, to get participation, given that, students can only be in one place at one time, it is more of a challenge than there is for other schools. But they, and we have students who were brought up at the board meeting who, may not have the family advantages to participate like we'd like. Many of them care for siblings after school. Some of them have to work to support families. So we're well aware of that. We support them as best we can, but that really does sometimes limit their ability to get, participate actively. We get them participating without a doubt, but obviously, other factors in their lives come first. Moving along to guidance. I'm not going to go through this, obviously, but there's a lot going on. I took you through October. They get into, as I said, the junior meetings. They prepare the schedule starting in February, which is very, very complex. Just so you know, planning, the misperception is that if you have a large school, it's much harder to schedule. The opposite is true. We have probably, 30 to 40% of our courses are singletons, which means they're only offered once. And then we have a lot of shared staff. So our foreign language teachers, they teach 4 preps. They have 2 middle school classes. And so if you want to have, AP Spanish at this time, so you get more kids, you may have to work with the middle school and negotiate that. So singletons are a factor. Other high schools, if you have 2,000 kids, you may have, 7 or sections of chemistry, or 3 sections of AP Psychology. So you have a little more flexibility. So I salute our guidance counselors. It's a really challenging task, and they're up to it. So it's not perfect, obviously, for the points I made. Moving along with more information about guidance, just so you know, I invite you. I spend my one summer afternoon going through the guidance website, which is terrific. As a parent who, my student kids are in high school, I wish I had this. It takes you through everything, soup to nuts, college application, career majors, what to do, optional schools, college visits, planning and admissions. So course offerings that we have at the high school. So it's really all there for you. They've worked very hard to put it together. And I would submit, if you take a look at it and spend some time, it'll be very invaluable to you, no matter what grade your student's in. On the website is also college majors, where I talked about the internship. And it's not unusual. I would say the majority of students, when you talk to them at any high school, it's what do you want to major in? I'm not sure. I'm thinking of, and that's just fine. That's the way, 16, 17-year-olds should be. They're open-minded to it. Well, some people have more focus in life, which is great if it works out for them. I did not have that, but I certainly, respect that. If they know are driven, they have an advantage. But if you're not sure too, and sometimes you make the decision when you're a little older, it's much more valuable to you because, it wasn't something you thought of when you were 15, and now you're not so sure at 23, you really enjoy what you're doing. So we really do expose them to college majors. It's part of the guidance meetings with the students on what they're interested in. Moving along, we also have jobs and careers. We have a virtual job shadow program. I did a business club several years ago before the pandemic, and I use these tools really to have students. What it does is it talks about jobs, whether it's salaries, what a daily, your daily life is like as a lawyer, as a financial analyst, as in the trades. So and we work towards putting kids where they're going to be successful. Some students, college is not really the best thing for them, or they want to go to a 2-year college and then go into a trade. I think it's more important we get a well-rounded, person who's really, a good citizen and caring, and really, winds up, successful and happy in whatever they decide to do that contributes to society. So this is available. When you talk about adolescents, it's varied interest. I'm not going to pretend they all jump at it, but it really is to spark. And sometimes when you work with students, you'll present something and you get a lukewarm response, but they may be processing things that you really don't see. And then, a year or two later, they'll remember it, or it'll have the spark is with them, and they basically, the benefit you have as an educator is you don't see, what's gone on after you've presented information or talk to students. So, that's sort of where we are with careers. And we're getting toward the home stretch here. I appreciate everybody's patience. Course offerings. We're typical to other high schools. We don't have as many courses to offer or sections to offer. We try and offer as many courses as possible. Let me correct myself. But we follow a pattern here. You can take a look at this. This is online. We have an honors program. I will submit, that, students in honors, it's important that they really belong there. There's a cachet for being in honors, but if you don't have the grades, it will hurt you. We have a waive-in process that we followed for 7 years. I've never really, abandoned it. I've stuck to it, and I've been supported, and I appreciate administration supporting me on that. And the reason why is because it's best for kids. So putting someone in honors who really is on the borderline and didn't qualify, then basically, I tell them, go back to, go in a Regents course, get a 95, which looks great on your transcript, and then go into honors. That looks so much better than struggling in honors. So I'll never forget, there was one student before we had the process, I think it was Quinnipiac University. She went through honors. We didn't have a process. The parents, pushed her in, I'll be honest. And when it came time for college acceptances, she did not get in. And basically someone who was in no honors in the Regents courses and did well, had great grades, got in. And, they're actually both in the hallway. And it was an emotional time. This is a decade ago, but I never forgot it. And so students who belong in honors, it's great, and go for it. AP courses, the curriculum is much more rigorous, obviously, and we encourage kids, if they want to go for it, to put the work in and do it. The grading policy is obviously, you get a higher index on your average, so that's supportive there, and it's looked at by colleges much more positively, that students are in it, provided they're doing the work and passing, and obviously the higher the grade, the better you do. So I think we have one more, just so you know, the guidance will be presenting at a board meeting, the board workshop in December. Mr. Tregler is a new guidance counselor. He's off to a great start. Ms. Perillo has been invaluable in the guidance transitions. So that concludes my presentation. I hope it was helpful to you and relevant. I'm sure I didn't include everything, so I'm obviously open for questions.
Yeah, Dr. Linehan, we have a couple of questions that people wrote in on the
Sure.
thing, so I'll just read those. One question is, this year we did away with physics Regents class in order to offer AP physics.
Yeah.
Has that been a good decision? And to do away with the Regents class seems odd in order to put an advanced level class that the majority of students wouldn't be able to take. In addition, Regents classes are important to pass the Regents. What will be the plan for this next year?
Yeah, we're looking at that. And what happened was we had low enrollment in physics. And we basically talked about it in admin. And I talked to the physics teacher. And it's come up over the years too. And, can you offer AP physics if you haven't taken the Regents? The answer was yes, we have done it. And just so you know, it's a different course. The Regents physics is high math. It's like plug and chug. And the AP physics is, it's more theory. It's more abstract. So it's a different course. That being said, I'm not going to say if you didn't have Regents physics, it wouldn't be an advantage. I'm not saying that at all. So we go with the low enrollment, we thought we'd get more kids into physics. And in fact, we did. We went from, I think we had 6 or 7 last year, and we have 19. So we've accomplished that, but the point's well taken. Basically, we're looking at putting Regents physics in for next year. We tried it. There are advantages. I talked to the physics teacher and asked her about that. And just so you know, a number of students don't need the physics Regents. She said she taught physics 2 or 3 years ago, and several of the kids were just bored, physics Regents. So a number of students in the AP class would be bored with the physics Regents. They can go right into AP physics. That being said, that's not the whole class. The other half of the class would probably benefit from physics Regents. The downside of that is I don't know if they would go on to, this is when you talk about programming in schools, if they would pursue physics more, as if they get it as a junior, the likelihood of them taking AP physics may not be, most likely, they'll probably take AP psychology. That's the hot course for seniors. So that's the answer. We're looking at it. We hear what everybody said. We tried something. The success has been we got more kids interested in physics. The other side of the coin is, an AP course, students, they elect to go in there. I've been in that course, in that classroom several times. I know Dr. I got to tell you, those kids are highly motivated, and guidance counselors met with the kids who are challenged in there, and they have an option to go to another course. So, these are 17-year-olds making a decision. So, that's sort of, where it's at on that. I know the other question I had was AP computer science. That came up, and I'll just address that. That course was put in 5 years ago, and basically it was put in really to get students interested in computer science at an AP level. It has AP rigor, but the prerequisite for that from the College Board is Algebra 1. It's not computer science, introduction to computers. Basically, so what they're trying to do there, it's not a heavy machine language course in the AP Computer Science. It's basically application coding and an introduction to, information systems. So, and it's trying to create diversity in the computer science program. So I know those two questions came up previously, so I just figured I'd throw the computer science question out too. We are looking at physics regents next year, but here's where, this is where the district has to make decisions. We're talking about project-based learning. So we have applications in physics, applicant in physics engineering, which is more project-based elective. So, we either add staff or we take away from a project-based opportunity in a section. So for every positive, there's also a disadvantage, but we're looking at it. I suspect it'll come back. So, as I said in my opening presentation, we evaluate all new courses, one for really successful implementation, and two, we're not perfect. So we're doing the best we can. We wanted to improve the physics enrollment. We got that, but I'm hearing the other side too. So no doubt. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, and then we had two other questions right in. One said, what is the school dress code and how is it enforced?
Well, the dress code is basically, we would talk to the kids in the halls and, and make recommendations. I don't know if anybody has specifics. There is, a societal issue we have. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't happen. All high schools have that. So, we work as best we can, within the parameters we have. So, we tell people dress appropriately. You're not going to the beach. We covered that opening day. The message is ongoing. When the seasons change, obviously we have challenges like any other school. I drive by other high schools on my way to work. I'm not the only principal facing that. So it's an ongoing dilemma. And I will tell you, from a values point of view, parents have different perspectives. So when we've called parents, they're not always agreeable with us. We do enforce it as best we can, but it's a challenge.
Okay, and there was one more question. How do you sign up for the National Honor Society tutoring if you want to be tutored?
Go to the guidance office, please. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, that was all the questions we had written in. I don't know if anyone else on the chat has any questions or any other participants.
Any other questions? Okay.
Guess not.
All right, I guess.
You covered a lot, Dr. Linehan.
Mr. Kier, you have a question? You work with me. How can you have a question?
Oh, no, I said you covered a lot. It was a lot in the presentation, so you must have been, yeah.
I hope it was, look, education today is very dynamic and there's a lot of change going on, and COVID has just added to everything. We're doing the best we can to really, I'm very proud of our staff. Like I said, they have, 3 or 4 preps. Our foreign language teachers have 4 preps. And they do an amazing job, working with our kids. So, and the students are just fantastic. I got to tell you, very respectful. I just pointed out the haunted house. I think in 19 years, I had 1 issue. So, again, the prom, 1 issue in 19 years. Because, the relationships in the school, the parent, the students and the adults, as I said, I run it like a small school. They care for each other. We've got work to do. I know we're not perfect or near perfect in some areas, and we just keep moving forward. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you very
Linehan,
much. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Linehan.
Okay. Bye-bye.